Hey there. Welcome to the final episode of Career Retrospectives for the year 2023. I am joined by my two incredible, super awesome, super califragilisticexpialidocious good friends, Kyle and Mike. What's going on, guys?
Hey,
Yo,
Yeah.
what's going
So we're
on?
we're back here once again. We're gonna do our final, as I mentioned from the top right now, our last episode of Career Retrospectives of the year. And the title of this podcast suggests we are talking about the best albums, our top 5 best albums of 2023. We did our worst ones last week, but now we're talking about the best ones that we think are the best ones this year, personally in our own ranking. So, all right, it's all come down to this, guys. We've had a hell of a year, so let's get into it, shall we? Kyle, talk to me.
All right, I'll kick it off. So I don't know if
Go,
I
go.
mentioned last week on stream how many albums or EPs or just releases in general I listened to this year. As of today, that number was 53 new releases.
Whoa.
That is now on average over one a week. This year was needless to say, it's my New Year's resolution next year to cut that down a bit and only stick to releases of bands that I really want to hear. This year I listened to a lot of mid-tier bands and like things like that. So when I was looking through my list, a lot of it is just mid-tier nonsense, even from bands that I generally like. So as I said last week, not the best year all around for music, but there were a handful of releases that really stuck out to me. I'm going to start with some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Blink 182, really like theirs. I know Mike put that on his worst, but as a Blink fan, longtime Blink fan, loved it. Nice return to form for them. The Used actually impressed me with their latest album. Uh, Very front loaded. The back end of it's not the best, but the songs that are great are really good. They've been following this weird trend of doing like good album, mediocre album. So that's they're on good upswing now. And then one that barely missed, just missed the top five. Death Clock's Death Album 4. That is the best, really on the heavier spectrum of metal. Best album I've heard in quite a while. Only thing that dragged it down was the ending of it. Had about three songs in a row that was like they don't really stack up to the other songs on it that were just insane hits from like the first, I think it's like 7 tracks of the album are just insane. So with that said, I'll get into my top five. At number five, we got Story of the Years, Tear Me to Pieces. Now, if you told me that Story of the Year would crack my top five in the year 2023, I would have doubted it. But this year, they really came through with this one. It actually sounds very reminiscent of their older work. I mean, songs like Tear Me to Pieces, the title track, is stuck in my head really since the album came out earlier in the year. It came out, I think, March. So that's literally all year. It'll randomly get stuck in my head. Has songs like 2005 is a great nostalgic track, as well as just a bunch of other like huge hits on here. There's not a bad song on this. Really great if you're into like that old emo style from like the early 2000s. Really impressed with this one. Then we get to number four. This one we talked about on stream. And actually, another big surprise for me this year was Post Malone's Austin. This is one, again, didn't expect him to have an album hitting my top five this year, mainly because his album before this I thought was pretty bad. 12 carat or 24 carat toothache, whatever it was. Didn't care for that one at all, outside of maybe one or two tracks. This one hits again, front to back. Loved this one. Had so many just straight tens on it. Songwriter vibe for most of it. And then he had like the 80s style synths thrown in there. Really impressed. I had some of my favorite songs of the year on it. I would love to see if he continues with this going forward. Then we'll get to number three. Another one we talked about here. Asking Alexandria's where do we go from here? Answer that question for them, hopefully, is only up from this point after two pretty lackluster albums. This one was, in a way, a return to form while also not being like, it's not your traditional metalcore album, that's for sure. It is heavier than the other two. Again, they need to work on their marketing. If you went into this thinking it was going to be heavy, like they marketed it, probably not going to enjoy it. I know Mike wasn't the biggest fan of it, but if you like that just radio rock, this will do the trick. Had some of, I think, their best choruses in quite a while. Danny's vocals on it really shine, especially that title track. It's really great. The songwriting is all there. The surprise breakdowns in some tracks really hit hard. This one, been listening to it since it came out. Come back to it very frequently. We get to number two, also on the metal side, Beartooth's new album, The Surface. This one is so good. Specifically, the first half. Again, that's another trend I've noticed this year is a lot of front-loaded albums. Not to say that the back half of this one is bad, because it's not. It's actually still really good. It's just not as good. I mean, Riptide was my number one most listened to song of the year. Still jam it. I've been jamming it since it was released as a single. I want to say last year it was released as a single. Um, been jamming that one. I mean, the first track, the title track, actually, The Surface, incredible. I Was Alive, very emotional. This is their best record to date. I mean, this is, from a songwriting perspective, it's very well done. From performance perspective, his voice sounds great. All the instruments is always on a Beartooth album. Very aggressive, really well done. But also on this one, this is how a band should evolve. Instead of fully changing your sound out of nowhere and doing like complete 180, like let's say like One More Light Linkin Park style, or Avenged Sevenfold's new release or something like that. This is a step in a little bit more of a accessible pop, I don't want to say pop, but more radio friendly direction, but it's well done. It's not a total, all right, we're writing a radio rock album. It's still heavy. It still has the essence of what Beartooth is, but it's more happy and uplifting, whereas all their other releases were on the more dark side of subject matter. This is more uplifting, more like hopeful, and I really enjoyed that, especially coming from them. Really an album that I think a lot of people needed this year, and really paid off. And that'll bring me on to number one, which was very tough because I really thought Beartooth had this. I really did. But the more I thought about it and revisited it, All Time Low's latest album, Tell Me I'm Alive, best one of the year. It's one that I've come back to. It came out within the first couple months of the year, either February or March, I want to say. But I've been listening to it.
What?
Mike, that Metallica album is one of those I'm talking about. That's just middle of the road, mediocre nonsense. But this one, it's so interesting that a band that's on their, I want to say this is their eighth album, something like that, eighth or ninth, one of those. Either way, is releasing still such good quality music. A lot of the times, especially with these pop punk bands, when you get this far into their career, they really tend to fall off and you tend to only listen to their old stuff. All Time Low is not like that. They know how to evolve their sound while still maintaining the core of who they are. Yes, there's some like electro pop influence on this record, and it shows in a few tracks, like New Religion featuring Teddy Swims, who we talked about a little bit on the Millennium album. That track is really good, though. Is it something that I would go out of my way to listen to normally had it not been on the album? No, but I'm glad it was. And there's, your stereotypical pop punk tracks on here, like Kill Your Vibe, Sound of Letting Go, things like that. But this one, very well done. Not as good as their previous record, Wake Up Sunshine, but album of the year. I've been coming back to it since the beginning of the year. We'll continue coming back to it. And seeing these songs live this year just made them hit even harder. So it was hard to not give it to Beartooth, but pound for pound, it's just ever so slightly edged it out.
All righty. You heard it here first, guys. That's Kyle's top 5 of the year plus his honorable mentions. Let's jump over to Mike. In Metallica 72 Seasons was definitely in there, man. I'm just kidding. What do you got?
Yeah, no, I already put that. I already put that on my worst list. There's no way it could be on both, but I mean, who knows?
Well,
That
I
could
mean,
go
I'm
only
just
if
crazy.
you only
kidding.
listen to 9 albums this year.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just kidding. Don't worry. But yeah, Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, so now I wouldn't say my list is like the five best albums. I mean it is, but I don't necessarily call it the best. Like, hey, this one's number one and this one's number two, but more so that there were some good albums out there that had some good tracks, but just seems like the quality of consistency um elevated these albums to a higher level versus like saying that, there isn't another album I could that I haven't had a chance to listen to that might dethrone them. But for what I was able to listen to and got into, and the consistency is the key word here. Now honorable mentions, like we had talked about Post Malone's album that actually grew on me later after kind of going off and listening to other music. I kind of returned to some tracks. I even was requested suggested a song as I listened to another song from Post Malone's album. Like it just kind of shuffled in on Google Music, and I was actually um I was a little shocked to find that I really enjoyed some of the songs more than I remember. So I put it on this list of like music that surprised me and makes me want to hear more later, and hopefully it continues in the same direction. Another album I wanted to mention was a band called In Flames. I actually talked with Kyle about this on how I didn't like their new album, but I actually changed
Hmm,
my mind on that as
really?
well. I know I'm actually surprised about that, Kyle, because I actually went back and listened to a lot of the songs, and I was able to really hone in on some of the melodies and the riffs on that album that really kind of impressed me as well. So like it missed the mark with consistency because it had some lower
Yes.
valleys that just didn't kind of come back up, but it had like some strong tracks on it. So I'm like hoping that they continue on. And then I will mention that Millennium album. That album actually like had some real strong tracks for me, some
Mhm.
strong enough to make me go, wow, like I could take 6, 7 tracks off of that and say, hey, I really enjoy listening to these, and then take the other half and throw it all out. But I really hope that they continue on in a certain direction for the future. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll
And
start at my number five.
Before
Oh
you,
yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say about the In Flames album. That one, and that's exactly why for me it's in like the 3 to 3.5 section
Yeah.
for me, is the good songs on it are really good, but
Mm,
it lacks that consistency where
yes.
it'll have one really good song and then the next song is just like, this is a questionable choice. Like you could have just left this one off entirely and it would have been better off for it. Um, I think I was just hoping for a little more from it. It was just kind of
Yeah.
one of those
No.
releases that from a band that normally I would enjoy more.
Mm,
It just kind of missed the
yeah.
mark for me this year, and there was quite a few of those.
Yeah, and considering their last three albums before that were all like like I mean, some of their better work that they've done in their career, like obviously sitting below their classics, but still like holding up the net of the idea that they're still continuing to be a fresh band, who kind of like can offer some new stuff. Yeah, it's definitely you get certain kind of vibes from them when it comes to like their new approach to music. So, yeah, so kind of just like starting my list out the bottom here. Uh, Queens of the Stone Age, New Times Roman. I'm sure Kyle is just pleasantly, happy to hear me put this on my list.
I knew it
It
was
just
coming.
blends. Yeah, you knew you had to know. So, but it just kind of made the list. It didn't exactly top it, but it just made it. So it just kind of blended the style and the groove with that songwriting and that kind of, I know it's the production that Kyle doesn't like, but it's the actual production that I like actually find very interesting, and kind of it gives it a certain quality to it. I just enjoyed the choruses on a bunch of the songs. It definitely grew on me. Gave and it kind of put me into this place of like a very kind of just it brought me back in time, but it also kept me in the present, when it comes to music and how they write their songs, and the their influences. You had some Doors feel on there. You had some real a little punky kind of like poppy kind of punk feel on some tracks, from Negative Spaces, Infections, funk and dance rhythms to the great choruses, head bopper like the Paper Machete or What the People Say. Once again that punk little 80s kind of synth punk. I don't know what you'd call it, but this
Well,
album had a lot
Mike,
of offerings.
you got the title, the track name wrong on that. It's
Oh, did
What
I?
the Peephole Say,
Peephole.
Mike.
What the peephole say? Excuse me.
Yes,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate
You
your
forgot about all
help.
the creative puns that I
Yes.
absolutely
Oh,
loved on it.
and that was definitely the most cringiest thing of that album, and something I felt was just overdone and almost to a level of like someone sitting in a room who's like, hey, let me make up a bunch of like real close, comparison words, song titles, and I'm just gonna like have a blast with this. And to a level that just screamed like, hey, relax, like you don't have to do this so much that you almost lose the meaning of it and the cleverness of it. You're almost going revert. You're coming full circle back to like zero. So
It's clever when you
yeah,
do it once, maybe twice.
yeah,
When you do it
right,
for like half the songs, it loses its
yeah.
cleverness.
It gets cringe, and I totally agree with you. So I would like that to go away, and I'm hoping it does because it wasn't there previously. But yeah, so Queens of the Stone Age, New Times Roman was for me just made the list, and it gives me hope for the future for Queens of the Stone Age and in that area. So then we come up to number 4. This might be more of a bias, historic, like I have history with this band, but Red's Rated R, what for me was just it definitely captured a lot of the elements that I wanted to hear from Red. Being a band hailing from Tennessee, the Nashville, they come from a very musical area, and you'd think country, but no, they kind of started out with like some powerful musical beginnings. They went from touring with some of the best Grammy nominated rock act, establishing themselves, and this installment continues on with the symphonic orchestral, like that integration of that kind of sound, which I really appreciate. A lot of fans were getting kind of like nervous that they were kind of doing away with that. A lot of bands did away with that because there was a lot of work, especially with the pandemic, to have a symphony and all these kinds of musical elements, where people were kind of like, oh, that's expensive, and replaced it by a lot of keyboards and stuff like that, which they do live, but they, using real recorded instruments is something I've always been a fan of. So yeah, I mean, from the song Surrogates, I mean, you can feel the heaviness from this album. Your Devil's a Ghost has got some real emotional feel to it with some dips and rises in musical structure, cadence, just the whole uh, uh, pacing of it. It's a song that really gets stuck in your head. Minus it all, Our Time Will Come. This was a return to heaviness and a memorable quality that just hits right, and I appreciate Red, doing what they do, and I'm just so excited for the future and to see this band. Now, this next one is a little bit of a curveball. To the detriment of my co-hosts here, they've had to uh, deal with my infatuation of folk metal. So unfortunately, and I say unfortunately for them, I really begun to love this band Sauron, and they put out a new album this year called, and this is, I'm gonna butcher this, so the entire Hispanic communities I'm sure are gonna be gunning for my head, but it's El Pajaro Fantasma, which means the ghost bird. I actually looked that up. Poor JT here, googling albums, is going to have himself a fun time with that. But it's El Pajaro Fantasma. It's their new album.
I don't
So
think that's it, JT.
sorry, JT. Forgive him, folks. He knows not what he does. Pajaro Fantasma, Phantasma, Pajaro, Phantasma, and then Sauron is Saurom. Saurom. Okay. Anyway, freaking amazing metal album. Absolutely just brings the fire. I have been captivated by this band. They have some amazing sing-along, feel-good songs. They've put them in the higher echelon of songwriting, and hailing from Spain, exclusively singing in Spanish. You would think, how does someone enjoy music they don't know the lyrics to or like understand? But it makes no difference. It is a quality album. It's just got so many different little elements to it, be it like bombshell choruses, little poppy kind of punk rock riffs to like sweeping kind of melodies. It really is a true testament to this band's ability to just pump out song after song of quality. And I highly recommend anybody who is a fan of like folk music or just in general like orchestra music to just check this band out and give them a chance, because you'll find yourself tapping your foot or bopping your head to their music. It really takes opening up your influence or your diversity. So yeah, and then we move on to number 2 on this list. Definitely felt this was a strong uh offering from this band. It brought me back to the old days, Foo Fighters, and here we are. This was just great. I looked at a lot of top rock lists. This made it on most top 10 rock lists, and it just brought me back, man. It was just like, here we are, and here we are, and they're just putting out music that literally I would think I was listening to back in like the early, mid 80s or mid 80s, mid 90s to the early 2000s. Like it was just nice to like hear the Foo Fighters just kind of and be doing what they do best, but then having some musical changes, keeping things fresh. You had some kind of 80s synth kind of like groovy kind of tracks on there. I think it was like The Glass, or I think it might have been that song. Yeah. Also, you had Hearing Voices, great song. Has such a mixture of different layers to it. And then you have your typical feel good kind of Foo Fighters song, Out From Under You. It just feels like Monkey Wrench, almost like, it felt so good to listen to this album. It made me smile. It was a touching tribute to the late drummer, who played with them, and like literally that song Rest. It was just Hawkins is definitely smiling up there. And I love staying true to the old sound, and I've talked with them, my co-host, about this, blending the old with the new, blending different speed songs, paced songs, some fast, some slow, learning how to blend all that together where making your audience not bored. This is what the best artists in the world do, and a lot of artists have failed to do this. So yeah, and then we move on to my number 1 once again, folks. The folk metal has become a it's just a trend, man, or a direction for me. But Elvin King, I found this band by a Elvin King, Reader of the Ruins is the name of the album. I found this band I joined a group, like a music group on Facebook, and somebody had recommended me this album. Holy crap. This is an album that will get stuck in your head. It is just the choruses, the performances in this, the orchestral arrangements. It's just a bombastic musical atom bomb, man. It really is. I just love the point that they don't overdo the folk stuff. They do it, and then they move on to like some hard rock and riffs. Like, it's just nice to see a band who knows how to not try to like use a crutch, that they understand that they're still musical artists. They're not just trying to beat one horse to death, So it just integrates a lot of musical elements. It's just a shocker of an album for me. My first introduction to them, I began to look back on some of their old music and was as well finding myself with a lot of new meat to chew here. So I highly recommend this for folk metal fans. I highly recommend this for bands, people who like 80s rock, or even just melodic metal. Elvin King, Reader of the Ruins. This is number 1, folks, and it's really is a musical journey that I enjoyed taking because of some nice suggestions, especially coming out in 2023. So yeah, it's my list.
You heard it here first, ladies and gents. That is Mike's list and Kyle's list. I guess it finally comes down to me at our last episode of the year
Yes.
of Career
Go.
Retrospectives. So I only have one honorable mention, then I have my top 5 of the year for me. Let me just get to my honorable mention really quick. So first and foremost, sticking with diversifying ourselves a little bit here. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Big Time Rush. Yes, I'm saying this out
They
loud.
had an album in 2023.
They released an album called Another Life, and I actually a brand of new material, and it was mind you, my listening of albums this year was very, very thin. So bear with me, everyone. But this was I did see them live. Bear with me, everyone. I know
They're
it's
still
really
around.
They are still around. Yes, they reunited in 2020 of all time.
Oh God,
I know it's crazy. So I saw
weren't
them
they
in
the
2020.
Nickelodeon boy band?
Yeah, they were. They were
Wasn't
the
that like
Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon's response to the Jonas Brothers back in the day?
Yes, they were, Kyle. Like, yes, they were. And I have to this it's like
Whoa.
31 minutes long, but it's like consistent pop song after consistent pop song. This is my honorable mention of the year. I had to shed some light on it because I feel like it got like no light when it came out. Like it didn't like debut on the Billboard 200 or they just kind of put it out because it's their first album like literally since like 2011 or 2012. So, but I had to shed some light on it because I thought it was I bopped to it, I vibed to it at the time. But I just want to shed some light on that. Another Life by Big Time Rush. Yes, I said those words out loud. Somewhere I'm gonna be like mocked after the show tonight, but that's besides the point though. Um, so, my number 5 after Big Time Rush, yes, my number 5 of the year. Actually, the more I thought about it, and the more I realized, you're talking about a guy who's really evolved over time in the past, like by 5, maybe 10 years. But Cobb brought it up, believe it or not. But Post Malone's Austin. Posty is. I actually, after we did our stream for not Crocs, sorry, Austin. There we go. Not Post Malone's Crocs. Post
Not
Malone
sponsored.
Austin.
No
We're not sponsored by Crocs. Don't worry. This record was a shocker. The more, and I didn't tell you guys this at all, but after we reviewed this record on earlier this year, it made me respect him more because he's not. When he first came out, I thought he was just like some rapper who was like, oh, he's another one of them kind of guys. But no, this had a lot of instrumentation on it. This was like this was almost, I would say, dare say, a rock record to an extent. Like, I mean, it had some really good rhythmic patterns, guitars in there, like some acoustic guitars in there. And I work for a top 40 radio station. We were playing a lot of the songs off this record on our top 40 radio station, kind of exposing people to more guitar, not fully like metal or hard rock or rock records necessarily, but giving people to listen to more guitar driven music, which whether it be acoustic or electric, that's up to you. But I think this was a really good take on a record that I really enjoyed quite a bit. And I think Posty actually did a good job with it, truthfully. So that's my number 5 is Post Malone's Austin. Great album, really great, but it's not my number 1. I'll get to that in a second. But I know that it was in Kyle's honorable mention. I know Mike hates this group, but Blink-182, One More Time. One More Time has grown on me a lot. The more we listen to it, the more I get used to these songs, the more we get used to these tracks. Blink-182's One More Time for me it's Blink reforming to what they were, but in a newer era of the band. We talk about Mark Hoppus, Tom DeLonge, and Travis Barker being back once again. I think they're back for the long haul. I think that this was a good reintroduction to a great band. And I know there's someone on the show who just is gonna like rip me apart for that. But Mike, but regardless though, like this is an album that I actually really have come to enjoy more as time goes on. I know when we did our initial stream, like when we go on a Wikipedia page, like you see like the blue highlighted like the tracks and stuff like that. I've learned to enjoy more tracks off the record more than just those blue highlighted tracks, and I've added some of those songs into more playlists that I have for like. It's a really good record overall. It is my number 4 for the year. Blink-182's One More Time. And plus, I keep hearing them on Sirius XM's The Pulse for whatever reason. Like, I hear like the title track and I cut one of the 2 other songs on The Pulse for whatever reason. Pulse, you're doing a great job out there. Keep it up. Mike brought this one up too, and I'm surprised he actually said it to begin with, but the Foo Fighters, that was a really good record, but here we are. That was a really, really, I mean, you're talking about a band that really just like was devastatedly and lost and really, really like just terribly hit by the loss of their drummer, Taylor Hawkins. But the Foo Fighters, they currently, they don't have a drummer in the band, but they do have that touring drummer. I forget the guy's name. Can someone help me out with that for a second? What's his name?
Isn't it Josh Freese?
Yeah, Josh Freese. Thank you. Yeah. I'm seeing them next year when they come to Citi Field. in Queens. I'm super excited to see them live again. My friend Bill has never seen them, so we're gonna go from our other show, Mixed Bag. We are gonna see the Foo Fighters next year, but here we are, man. But here we are. I mean, for lack of a better word, this is a really solid record. The Glass was a great track. I mean, like the Teacher. I mean, even though it was like 11 minutes long, it's still like held up a little bit over more of a time. Really emotional writing, really emotional songwriting and storytelling from Dave Grohl. Being coming from Nirvana and losing Kurt Cobain, and then going from the Foo Fighters and losing Taylor Hawkins. The guy's been through a lot, but he really does pour his heart and energy into his art and his work, which is the Foo Fighters, and that's I think his. Honestly, I think that's his baby, really, in a sense, and that he loves making music, and he put out this incredible record that really has really resonated with me, at least. Well, I mean, and we've said this before, we'll say it again. They're to me, they're not really an album artist. Like they if you give me like the Foo Fighters greatest hits, I'm the happiest man alive. But if you give me like One by One or or Color in the Shape, you could pick and choose a lot of the really good songs off there, but as an album, they're not really that full. But this one was something special, and I really appreciate Dave Grohl for putting out a product that was just that really what we needed as Foo Fighters fans. So let's look back like a better word. So that's my number 3. My number 2 might surprise both of you, but I mean, as someone who appreciates, we don't really talk about it much on Career Retrospectives. But my biggest bread and butter with music lately has been older artists releasing newer music. I mean, like some of my artists, my guys, like, like Bryan Adams put out a record like last year. It was great. So Happy It Hurts. And I'm a big fan of like when older classic rock artists put out new records. This might be as a complete shocker, but the Rolling Stones, they put out an album called Hackney Diamonds.
Just to interrupt, that actually was on a lot of top lists, actually. Surprisingly enough, I saw that there, and I had never listened to it yet, so I can't speak on it. I need to come back.
Heard anything from it?
Yeah, okay. So I'm actually looking forward to checking this one out, and I've never been the biggest fan of the Rolling Stones, but I've obviously loved all their hits. I've just never been an albums guy, and I actually do want to listen to some albums.
Well, you're going to go see him next year with me, Mike. So
I've always liked their original output, but past that, not much for me. So I don't know what they sound like in 2023.
I mean, they went through
closer to that, or if it's more like their late 70s and 80s output.
There's a feature on here from Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr. There's Lady Gaga on here, believe it or not. But I mean, when I tell you that I know this is why I wanted to bring it up, because when I first listened to it, I was all right, whatever. It's a new Rolling Stones record. Their first in 18 years, mind you, of new material. My first thought was, this is gonna suck. They're just doing a cash grab. They're doing, whatever. But when I heard that first single, Angry, I was like, all right, Jagger's 80 years old, but he still sounds pretty good, truthfully. Keith Richards just turned 80 on December 18th, and he's still playing guitar left and right. And I was really surprised by how well they put out an album. Even like metal critics, like, I mean, we never talk about it, but Eddie Trunk reviewed the record. He's like, it's amazing how the Rolling Stones could put out a new album and have it be like just that re-listenable. I've listened to this probably at least 4 or 5 times. It's probably like a 40-minute record, maybe 4 or 5, maybe even 6 times. I might stream it tonight before I go out. But I mean, I was just kind of like taken back by the Rolling Stones putting out a new album this late in their 60 years after they formed. I mean, come on. You would think, they're just going to play Miss You. They're going to play Satisfaction, Sympathy for the Devil. They're going to play Beast of Burden, whatever. But I have to tell you, I really hope that I hear at least 2 or 3 songs of this record live. And Paul McCartney's featured as a vocalist on one of the songs. Ringo Starr's drumming. And this is also coming off of the fact that Charlie Watts, their original drummer, died in 2021. So, and they had like leftover drum tracks ready to go for him, and that he left for the songs. Bill Wyman, the original bassist, is here too on this record. I was really surprised by the Rolling Stones, but it was not my number 1. It's not my number 1 this year for a reason, and that's because back in March we had a band that I've really come to adore and respect even more than I already do. Hopefully I see them next year when they come into town. I got to get tickets for it, but Fall Out Boy, man, I know. When I first said this as my number 1, I was like, wow, I was surprised. So much for Stardust.
I did not expect that. Wow.
I know. I didn't expect it either, but I didn't listen to that many new records this year. So I just said, what's out of the 5 or 6, maybe 7 that I've listened to this year? What's my top out of the ones that I really enjoyed this year? I mean, Metallica notwithstanding and whatnot, but the fact that Fall Out Boy can put out in 2023 a pop punk record that sounds with really good tracks on it. You know, we have like this, and the title track was okay, but like, what was it? The Love from the Other Side. I listened to that the other day. I'm like, this just sounds so good. It was so guitar driven. And coming off of Mania, which Colin and I did a career retrospectives on back in like April or May of last year, we talked about that record and we just said, nope, nope, nope. That was a very mixed bag record, not the best. Coming off of that and going into Fall Out Boy, So Much for Stardust. Listen, you want to talk about a band releasing pop punk to a T even more. This album got me excited for future releases by other bands in the genre. Like Green Day Saviors is coming out next year. We gotta review that, of course. But like, and even like, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Weezer puts out a new album too. Like in that whole vein of like pop punk and alternative rock, that whole like little like cup of like artists. This got me more excited to go see them live as well, because I haven't seen them live yet. That's shame on my part. But I was, man, Pete Wentz's vocals and Patrick Stump, and these guys are like these taken back, truthfully taken back by Fall Out Boy. So Much for Stardust. I was really shocked. I actually forgot this came out, and then I re-listened to it again because that's right, that came out this year, and I listened to it like number one, hands down. So my number one for 2023. Like I said, I didn't really listen to a lot of records this year by new artists, but when we did, some of them really didn't hit well. This one really hit really well for me personally, and I really hope to hear. I can't wait to see, not just hear, but see the material live when I go see them live in March of next year when they hit the area that we are in. But I'm just really taken back. This is a really solid number one record for me. And the more I thought about it, I said, you know what? And the more I listened to it, I'm like, this is actually something really special and something I really enjoyed quite a bit. I mean, not everyone did, and that's okay. I mean, you're listening to two people who didn't quite enjoy it as much as I do, or Kyle enjoyed it more than Mike, whatever, or vice versa, whatever. But I have to say, this one really took me by surprise that this is my number one of 2023. That Fall Out Boys, So Much for Stardust is like just, I was in shock. And the fact that, again, I work for a top 40 radio station. They were playing the singles, Heartbreak Feels So Good and Love from the Other Side on top 40, kind of putting like guitar driven music on top 40 stations. Because, hey, it's a new Fall Out Boy single. Let's play it anyways. And sure enough, they were playing it. And I was really happy that they did because you're exposing kids and other people to more guitar driven. Now, I'm not saying rock is, dead or alive or what. I'm just saying you're exposing people to more guitar driven music. And I think that's a really good thing personally for me. But Fall Out Boys, So Much for Stardust is my number one of the year 2023.
I was really hoping this one was going to make my top of the year. But for me, I feel like I liked it less over time. I had like a weird like roller coaster effect with this one. Where at first I wasn't too into it.
Yeah.
And I really liked it. And then now I'm just kind of like lukewarm on it.
Yeah.
Where like the good songs on this, don't get me wrong, some of my favorite songs of the year came from this. Like Love from the Other Side, What a Time to Be Alive. If You Hold Me Like a Grudge.
Oh yeah.
Excellent songs. I'd put it up there in like the top tier of their entire catalog. But it had for me so many songs that I was just like, oh, like a lot of it was Heartbreak Feels So Good. Like they threw a lot of like na-nas and stuff here and there, and just
Yeah, and I get a pass because I'm old, but I'm kind of disappointed in you two. No one, no SZA, no Drake, no little Yachty. You guys really disappoint me. I can't believe you don't have any of these in your top five. I mean, even top three. You really let me down, and I'm hoping next year you guys can really like raise that bar up and go get yourself some of those kinds of real hard hitting tracks. So I get a pass once again. I'm old.
One band, talking about new artists real quick. One band I want to give a shout out to. They're not big at all. They're new, absolutely not. They're not new, but they were pretty close to hitting the top five. I'm sorry, they are new. They're called The Hanging Judge. Mike, I think I sent you a song of theirs earlier in the year when the album came out. They're like a punk band leaning a little more into like the almost a hardcore sound, but not quite. Really solid record. If you like punk, if you like traditional punk, almost hardcore, give them a listen. Self-titled album, incredible. Such a good listen. Come back to it very frequently. They're not big at all. The album's on Spotify. I think you probably find on YouTube too, but check it out.
Good to know.
Oh.
Might have to check that out at one point. Anything else, guys, before we wrap it up?
Nope.
Yeah, man. Hey, this is it, man. We're
This has
done.
been it, guys. This is our last one of 2023. It has been a pleasure doing business with you all, for sharing our love of music, regardless of whatever genre it is. And with you guys, the listeners, I want to thank you all for watching, listening, however you enjoyed us tonight. Please sound off, reach for us on social media. And I want to thank Kyle and Mike for another great year of career retrospectives right here on these two. I don't really shed this light enough, but these two are extremely knowledgeable on music. It's two of the best I know, and they know what they're doing, and I applaud them sincerely. So thank you both.
Yeah, man.
For doing
And
what you
insert like
for having
confetti poppers in post. I don't have any. I don't have any here due to
There we go.
unforeseen.
I got you covered, Mike.
Yeah.
There
Wow,
you go.
Kyle, that was
Kyle's got his right there.
that's just our budget is really, really high. So
I mean, I pay for us to go live on Zoom, but that's besides the point, though. But regardless, though, I want to thank the two of them for doing another year with me. So there's not going to be new episodes for the rest of the year. We'll see you guys next year in the year 2024.
Thank
Hopefully,
you, JT. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Well
that.
Well done.
And I just want to say something really quick. I want to thank Kyle for starting this off with me back in, like, was it January of 2022? I forget already.
Maybe was it 20? Was it
It was
2022
either-
or was it 2021?
It was either December of 21 or January of 22. I don't remember, because the whole reason why the whole reason why we came at the show in the first place was because I wanted to have Kyle. I wanted to talk about music with some friends of mine, but I wasn't sure how to exactly do it. And I said, hey, who can I talk to about Green Day's 21st Century Breakdown? Oh, Kyle Quershaw. Of course. It's his favorite album of all time, so why not? And we shed some light on that, and then it just led to what I was talking about, music and albums, and then we just started new releases, and then it evolved to what it is today. So I want to thank him for coming on and doing this always as well. And Mike later joined the picture too, which is great. So, but yeah. But that's going to do it for us, guys. Hopefully you had a wonderful 2023 as much as we did, and hopefully all is well with you in the world, and Happy New Year, of course, to all of our listeners out there. So thank you so much. So for all of your career retrospectives, look forward to more in the new year. So everyone, so stay safe, take care, and Happy New Year from all.